Hello and welcome to Too Fast, Too Forever. There's all kinds of family. We chose this one. This is actually episode 209, Red Notice from 2021. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe, too.
And you will understand that actually episode 209, I think if I left it in on the next episode in the tune-up, relap, recap, we're not going to go into it, but it's 209. There is no 210, even though the next episode will be 211. So it's fine. Don't worry about it. We're here. I think, other than a proper Fast and Furious movie, I think this is the newest movie we've ever done for the podcast. Does that make sense?
No. You
like,
mean because it's been out for like a day?
Well, turnaround time between like when it's available and when we're covering it. Also, yes, newest because it is the newest movie that we've covered because it's the newest release.
Pretty obvious that it's the newest movie.
Shortest turnaround time, I think, right?
Yeah, it should be pretty good. I mean, usually I think Hobbs and Shaw and F9.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying other than like a proper Fast and Furious.
I think so. That makes sense.
We did, what was the other one we did? Oh, Ford v Ferrari, but I don't think we did it this quickly.
No, definitely not.
Anyway, we are here because this is a movie now on Netflix starring The Rock and Gal Gadot and Ryan Reynolds, 3 Fast and Furious family members.
Yes.
So now, we had sort of briefly talked about this in past things, but what do you know about the making of the background of this movie? Do you know anything about Red Notice? Okay.
Absolutely zero. I didn't know anything about it. The only thing that I did know was I saw half of a commercial that was... it was a commercial when something else was on TV, and The Rock was like, our new movie, Red Notice, comes out, this day, which I guess was yesterday, right? And I thought that it was going to be released in theaters.
It was in some theaters last week, I guess, to qualify it for Oscars or whatever.
Okay, that makes sense. So, so I thought it was he said that, and it wasn't even really, I don't think it was even, a commercial. It was, him being, The Rock running promo for the movie that had scenes of the movie, not an actual trailer.
Okay. So this movie was originally supposed to come out in theaters under Universal.
Okay.
But Netflix bought the streaming rights for a lot of money. I don't know. The budget of this movie is $200 million.
That's insane.
So it's the most expensive movie that Netflix has ever made.
Really? Okay.
The Rock, or Dwayne Johnson, Ryan Reynolds, and Gal Gadot each reportedly earned at least $20 million for this.
Insane.
It's written, produced, and directed by this guy, Rawson Marshall Thurber, a name I'm like, I've never seen that name before, but directed Skyscraper, the Dwayne Johnson movie, Central Intelligence, the Dwayne Johnson, Kevin Hart movie, Dodgeball, and We're the Millers. So this guy has been around. He's done
comedies,
fairly big things. Comedies, and now into the Dwayne Johnson action oeuvre, right?
Yeah.
We've also hinted at this, but there seems to be a backlash to this movie. Have you seen that? Have you heard about that? Or you just sort of know that from the fact that they're not really promoting a movie that cost $200 million to make?
I said that to you, that I thought it was interesting that I saw one trailer a week ago, and then there's been no promotion since. I didn't know if that played into it not being in theaters and just being streaming on Netflix, because I think that I made this argument when we were talking about why The Last Man just, to other people, that, Netflix does really good at promoting their own stuff. When you open Netflix, I opened it yesterday, Red Notice was big, huge, first thing you see. So I was like, okay, so maybe they don't need to run promo because they know people have Netflix, and once you open it, they run it kind of itself. And the only things that I've heard are from an extension like you or my friend Matt saying that people are saying the reviews of this movie are pretty bad.
Yes. Netflix is a weird beast. They promote some stuff when it's award stuff or things like this they would otherwise, I think, largely promote. But for everything else, they're just hey, we're going to just see if people find it. And then what people find, what people start watching, then we're going to push that. We're going to really crank up the algorithm there. But the same thing as you, I opened Netflix last night and Red Notice right there. I don't even have to scroll down, just hit A and it just goes, right?
Yeah, one button. I opened Netflix, it was watch Red Notice, click play. That was it.
So I'm looking at, it's got a Metacritic score in the 30s. It's got, it seems like the audience scores, what people like, just regular viewers they don't love this movie, but they like this movie more than critics. And I'm looking through critics' reviews, And it seems like, and I think that this is both fair and unfair for this movie, it feels like the reason people being critics, hate this movie is because this is like one of the ones they have chosen to express their dismay at what Hollywood has become, if that makes sense.
Oh.
That they're like, there's just a string of generic action movies with, we don't have movie stars anymore, nothing is interesting, and so every review on
So
Letterboxd...
it's kind of like a meta review, like a...
Yeah.
Okay, that's stupid.
I think so. Yeah,
okay.
And it's not fair to Red Notice. I mean, this movie is not the best movie I've ever seen. It's very predictable, but it is charming, it's fun, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't think it deserves, like, 4 and 5-star accolades from these critics, but, like, people are giving this, esteemed, both, Letterboxd critics, like, but people who write for, like, serious publications or whatever, are giving it, like, 1 star, and I'm like, that feels, like, so overly harsh for a movie that's, like, yeah, I've seen this kind of movie before, but, like, it's fun, right?
When I was describing it to my friends, because, we had finished it, and I was like, I think you guys would really like this. If you like The Rock movies, if you like Ryan Reynolds movies, and you like Gal Gadot, they're playing their characters that they play in every movie.
And I think that's part of what the issue that these people have is, like, these 3 movie stars specifically play the same character in every movie, which, if you like that, it's fun.
Exactly.
If you want range... it's frustrating. I understand that. But yes, there's nothing hidden here. It's kind of a little Indiana Jones. It's a little Ocean's 11.
Yep.
It's a little this, it's a little that. It's not as necessarily fresh or original as good as any of those. But if you like these 3 actors, you get what you came for.
You get that's what I said. It's exactly what you'd expect, and that's not a bad thing. This is a blockbuster movie. How is this different than any other blockbuster movies? I get now we're in a world where, like, things like Marvel try to do creative, interesting things, but at the end of the day, you know what a Marvel movie is going to be too, right? Like, you generally get the sense of what it's going to be. And we were just talking about this. Like, we saw Dune recently, and you have, what's his name? Jason Momoa in it. And he's playing the same character in everything that he does too. It's always Khal Drogo. It's the same guy. So, like, how is that any different than what this is? But this is, like, a little bit more corny, a little bit more comedic. It definitely is just, like you said, a little bit of Indiana Jones. Yeah. But that doesn't mean it's bad. So, yeah, I actually pretty much really enjoyed this movie for what it was, right? I'm not like, oh man, this is the best movie of the year. You don't have to see this. It shouldn't win any awards. But it was fun.
And I think the other thing that we've complained about on here before is that people get mad. They're like, I can't believe they're making a 10th Fast and Furious movie. Can't they do anything original? And then here, they do, like, an original IP. Again, not the most original idea, but, like, a new thing, like, hey, because they set this up like, hey, don't you want a Red Notice too, the 3 of them together?
Yep.
And then people are like, I don't want this. It's like, well, fucking pick something. Like, you can't just have everything be, like, $200 million invented. Like, everything can't be a Christopher Nolan movie, which, by the way, people complain about those too. So, like, everybody just whines about things to whine about. If you don't want to watch Red Notice, don't watch Red Notice. But if you like these actors, if you like the Fast and Furious movies, watch Red Notice.
And you're going to probably like it. You're probably going to like it a lot, actually. Yeah. The Rock, like, Dwayne Johnson is just playing Hobbs in this movie for a while.
As I was taking, like, a few notes, I wrote down Hobbs. I'm like, I can't call him Hobbs. I mean, I can call him Hobbs, but, like, I can't call him Hobbs in my notes because, like, he's not Hobbs, right? It's, he's The Rock, he's like Dwayne, he's whatever.
This felt like an extension of the Hobbs. I mean, like, granted, like we said, he plays the same, I'm a cop that is kind of tied up in criminal things, and, like, I have to be the buff guy while somebody plays funny man against me. And, like, all these movies are buddy cop movies. Hobbs and Shaw was a buddy cop movie. It's the same thing here, but Ryan Reynolds is, like, a little bit funnier and sillier than, Jason Statham.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you like any of these things, you're going to love this movie, I think.
There's things that exactly fall into that also kind of twist, like, if you have not seen it, it's on Netflix. Go watch it if you want to watch it. If you don't care about a spoiler, whatever. But, like, at the end, when there's the, like, not very surprising reveal that The Rock has been a bad guy all along, like, he's been working with Giselle, he's been working with Gal Gadot. So that's
the bishop.
Not bishop. There are 2 bishops because there's 2 bishops on the chessboard, right?
Yep, exactly.
So it's not surprising that this guy that we thought that was never really fully established as, like, we never see his badge, even though Ryan Reynolds wants to see it, whatever.
Yeah.
It's not really surprising that he's not necessarily a good guy, that he's, gray area or bad guy or whatever. What is surprising, though, is seeing Hobbs and Giselle kiss. And I'm just like, whoa. Like, that's
It was very weird. I agree.
Because it's like, hey, man, it's Han's girl, right? So like,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like, I did not expect Ryan Reynolds to be the bad guy, even though at the end they're all the bad guy. Like, Giselle makes sense,
Yes,
right? It's just,
I agree.
It's just, there's these things that they play the same thing in every movie, but there's twists just like, that aren't good or bad, but my brain is like, oh.
To go counter the, like, it's the same character every time, Ryan Reynolds is always, like, the bad guy that's actually the good guy. And in this one, he's, like, a good guy that is actually a bad guy. So I was like, okay, cool. That's something a little bit different. Like, a tiny spin on what they're doing and still giving people, the audience, exactly what they want from the characters anyways. So,
Yeah.
did you think that in this movie, it seemed to me very apparent that Gal Gadot was having the most fun in a movie I've seen her have?
She seemed to be having a lot of fun. I mean, she's, yes, for sure.
Did it seem, because she was just like, she was like giggly and like, she was like overacting it to be like a more flamboyant character, like singing. Like, we don't ever see her, like, she's not like an actress that I'd be like, oh
Yes.
yeah, she has like a weird singing part. And it's like not really good singing. She just was like having fun.
Even though Ryan Reynolds says she's such a good singer.
Yeah, exactly. But like, it's really not. She's not like, you know, doing like a musical number in a film. It's just like she's just singing because it's just like a stupid character thing.
They're singing Downtown, which is a song from the TV, well, not from, but like featured on the TV show Lost, which is sort of a fast connection, at least to us. But yeah, no, I think because like, number one, she's getting paid. Number two, it's a fun, silly movie.
Yep.
Number three, she's working with people that she's probably worked with before. At least, you know, she's worked with Dwayne Johnson before a couple of. So when I was looking at IMDb for trivia last night, which is, you know, I pulled some of the like the facts and figures from there, and I have one other thing that I'm gonna share that I shared with you last night. But I'm like, oh, there's gonna be like 4 pieces of trivia because like it's a brand new movie. Like what's there to talk about?
Yes.
And there were like 30 things. I'm like, whoa, okay. And like all of them are like, this is the 4th time that Dwayne Johnson and Gal Gadot have worked together. The other 3 are Fast 5, Fast and Furious 6. I'm like, yeah, but I know. Or like all 3 of them have been in the Fast and Furious. It's like, yeah, I know. Or all 3 of them have been superheroes. It's like, yeah, I know. Like we get that. Like these aren't trivia. This is just like people just trying to submit or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's getting paid. She's worked with these people before. It's a fun, silly movie. It doesn't seem super like of the 3 roles, she's on screen the least, I think. So she probably has less to do. So just, you know, when she's on there, just like ham it up. She gets to be sexy and cunning and whatever. And yeah, it's just why would you not want to be in that part, right? Like it just seems like, yeah, I'll take $20 million to be myself and like be beautiful and cool and fun and, you know, whatever.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's nothing that I see. This is definitely like, we talk about a lot that like people make like passion projects and stuff like that, or like this is like what this person wanted to do. This seems like the perfect movie for what these guys want to do, right? If you're like already Wonder Woman and Giselle, you know what I mean, and been in all these movies, and then you get to do like a fun, silly action movie, you're like, fuck yeah. And The Rock has been making these movies forever, and Ryan Reynolds plays this character in a lot of things, so like, yeah, I'm sure that they were like, I get to hang out and do this and get paid $20 million. Like, fuck yeah, this is awesome.
Because there's this thing, you know, so the other trivia that was crazy was that considered for a part, and I don't know what part this would be, I guess it would depend on who it was, but Tom Cruise, Nicolas Cage, and Keanu Reeves, that's the verbatim, the entire trivia, which I've done podcasts on all 3 of them, were all considered for a part. Nicolas Cage was nominated by Dwayne Johnson. So I would assume that Nicolas Cage will play Sotto Voce, the like bad guy played by Christian Diamantopoulos.
Yeah, who is Trace Comas from what's it called?
Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And he also played, I think, Mo in the new Three Stooges. So like he's got a weird career, but like I can see that as a Cage role. I can kind of see that as a Keanu role, but I don't think Cruise, I mean, I guess Cruise, I don't know. It feels like Cruise would have to be one of the, like maybe the Ryan Reynolds part, but that doesn't fit.
Yeah, because he never plays bad. Cruise never plays bad guy.
He plays bad a couple times.
He would need to have like a bigger role. You're right, because I could definitely see it being Nicolas Cage. I can kind of see it being Keanu. I cannot see Cruise not being like Ryan Reynolds or even The Rock, right? Like,
right. So that's why I bring this up now, because I think what Mike and I learned in doing those shows is that as Keanu got older, he was like, I'm willing to sort of be a player, like a side player in your thing. Like he's in the Neon Demon. He's in a handful of movies recently where he's not the star.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage has chosen that no matter what movie he's in, he would rather be the lead in a movie that like only Cage fans see than be like a side character in a movie that everybody sees. Like he played a very small part in Oliver Stone's Snowden, and he was really good in that role. But like other than that, like he rarely plays a character that would be like on screen for this little time, as he would in this. Cruise, sort of similar to Cage in a way, but like with more star power, has been trying desperately for the last like 10 or 15 years to get a second franchise going. Like he has Mission Impossible, which is his thing forever. But like with Jack Reacher, with like the Mummy movie, like he's trying to find something that he can like franchise that he can not coast on, but be like, okay, I'm going to make 5 of these movies over the next 15 years, and I'm going to make $15-20 million, and I'm going to be like, this is what I'm known for now. And I think going back to Red Notice, like that's what you were saying before, like Gal Gadot and Dwayne Johnson and Ryan Reynolds are like, hey, if this is a hit, we can do 5 of these movies in the next 15 years, or in Netflix timeline, probably 5 in the next like 6 years, right?
Yeah.
But we can make $20 million. And worst case, it doesn't go over well. It's just another blip on the radar of the streaming landscape. We all got paid. We got to hang out with our friends. There's no downside here. Like nobody's going to think less of Dwayne Johnson or Ryan Reynolds or Gal Gadot if they don't like this movie. Because if they don't like this movie, they're probably already having other issues that they were already not thinking highly of. You know what I mean? So like, there's really, I don't think, any downside here.
No, I don't either. And we've talked about this a lot when like we talk about spy racers and stuff like that. With the new things and like streaming things coming out, we get that like, you know, streaming is the new wave and like it still makes, you know, wins awards and stuff like that. But in the same sense, it feels kind of different than like a theatrical release. Like if this was a blockbuster and bombed, that has a different feel than like this just came on Netflix. Like you're absolutely right. Nobody's going to judge them if this movie doesn't do well, because it's like, oh, it was a movie that just came out on Netflix. Like, it wasn't like promoted at the, you know, there was no Super Bowl commercials for Red Notice.
Right, which I think is also why people are annoyed, which I don't think they should be, but it's just like Netflix is like, okay, star plus heist plus blah, blah, blah equals success, question mark, and they just do that, right? And it's just like, okay, so this didn't work, so okay, so let's grab, we're going to take Jason Statham, we're going to take Vin Diesel, and we're going to take Natalie Emmanuel, and we're going to throw them in, like, The Jungle or whatever. Just like, well, you just tried that, but, like, maybe that'll work, right? And, like, they just do that, and everybody's doing that. It's just like, how do we get the next thing that people are going to talk about for, like, a single week, right? Because... Yeah.
Do you think that they're going to make another one of these?
No, I don't think so. I think that the critical reception to it is, I mean, unless... because in the last like 2 months, Netflix has started releasing viewer numbers for the first time ever. Like they have been so secretive, and like once every like 2 years, they'd be like, 90 million people watch Bird Box. It's like, whoa, okay, cool. Like they would put out like a list of like their 10 most, but like recently, and I think it's because they're trying to prove to investors or whatever that like, hey, we're actually pretty successful. They started doing that. So if this is a wild success, we will know. And they'll be like, okay, cool, we're going to do a second one. Because that sets it up for, like, the 3 of them together. I'm guessing it costs too much money. The critical backlash is too much. So that unless, like, hundreds of millions of houses watch it this weekend or whatever. There's just, like, they can try something else that's cheaper and just with, like, you know, the same kind of upside or whatever.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
I think. I don't know. I have no idea for sure.
Yeah, the budget's huge, so... guessing that the budget would have to go up or at least stay the same. They have to get their $200 million back somehow, right? So, and
then, you know, even though they set it up as the 3 of them together, you probably bring in a 4th big star that's also going to cost more money. And But in terms of, like, I was trying not to watch this. Like, I don't know that the characters, I mean, even though he's playing Hobbs, I don't know that the characters really necessarily cross over, but there are a lot of things that, I mean, we've done 200 of these. Like, there's a lot of things we've talked about, but, like, a lot of the things that we talk about in the Fast and Furious movies also pop up here as well.
Yeah, I actually saw a lot of Fastnections, but, I mean, it's, you know, a blockbuster action movie, so there's a lot of crossover there, and you have 3 characters that have been in the movies, so it's, like, it's pretty easy. But, yes, it had a very Fast and the Furious kind of feel to it. Just, like, the way it was shot, the pace of it, the everything. There was even, like... some family parts, you know?
Sure.
I could imagine this as a, like, Hobbs' backstory, origin story, right?
Hobbs and Locke. This is actually so when they're in the diner in Hobbs and Shaw, and he's like, remember all those times we hung out? Like this could just be one of those times, right? Like this is a prequel to
Yes.
like Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah, and he could be like double, quadruple crossing
Yeah.
Gal and
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Reynolds and be like, I was actually a cop the whole time, like
Yeah.
I'm part of the DSS that nobody knows about, Mr. Nobody. Like it could work. You could just keep writing in more reveals.
Yeah. Literally, the title might as well have been mentioned in a Fast and Furious thing because Red Notice is the highest wanted level from Interpol, aka family status, basically, right? Where they're like, the 10 most wanted, and she's a
Not 11.
Ramsey's a 10 or whatever.
Yeah.
So the family is basically Red Notice status.
Always.
What it is. There's like car chases in this. The Rock steals a Porsche, and then he kicks on the Beastie Boys Sabotage, which like feels like when Star Trek did that 12 years ago. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then here, just like, okay. But then what I did like is that he immediately gets T-boned by a gelato truck. Just like, oh, okay.
Yes, yeah.
That's a nice twist on that.
And there was lots of like globe jumping here, and it would start out just like Rome, Fast and the Furious, like London. They just keep going through the whole thing.
Russia, Fast and Furious.
Yeah, exactly.
Apparently, most of this movie was shot in Georgia, like the state Georgia, not the country Georgia. So, like, shout out to Georgia for being this diverse. I mean, like we talked about, like on Lost, like almost all of Lost was shot in Hawaii. So, like, talented production designers and scouts could, like, location scouts and whatever, can make a single place look like a lot of things. But like, they didn't shoot everything in Georgia, but for most of this to be shot there, it's like, yeah, okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's like the new thing. I think that Georgia and like Atlanta plays like a lot of cities, and because you can get like swamp and forest and all these things in one general area, so good for them.
Also, Fast and Furious when they get shipped to the Russian prison, which I'm not sure why they go there, but whatever. Dwayne Johnson and Ryan Reynolds become cellmates, so it's not exactly across the hall like Hobbs and Shaw, but it's even closer. Just like, oh, okay, so this is
we get
the same thing. Yep,
cool. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, The Rock in prison again, and like, and he's a cop. He's a cop in prison, and you're like, yep, that's. I've seen this before. Doesn't mean it's bad. Just seen it, and it's still enjoyable.
And then this is where, when they're in prison, this is when where we're introduced to Gal Gadot, and I think this goes back. Like, this is. I don't think she's ever having more fun than here when she's in that like. The episode I just watched this morning of Seinfeld, where George has the $8,000 hat that Elaine buys for him with the J. Peterman company credit card.
Oh,
she's wearing that, and she's got like the big long boots, and just like delighting in her like lording power over them, right?
Yeah.
Just a blast, an absolute blast.
But before, when they're like, when Ryan Reynolds and The Rock are like chasing each other around, I really enjoyed that both of them had their own alcohol product placement.
Wait, is Terramana in here? I saw Aviation Gin. I did not see Terramana.
Yes, when he like right after when he's waiting to catch the flight, when she's like, I looked you up, you're not a cop. And he's sitting there, like he has the Air Italia tickets, he's waiting to board the flight to leave.
Yes.
He's like, I'm going home. Like he's drinking Terramana in the lounge.
Okay, because I was surprised that we got Aviation Gin, but no Terramana. But I guess if you caught the Terramana, like I know he's drinking clear liquids, but I just didn't see the bottle. So okay, good.
Yeah, so they both got their own liquor placements, and they're like one scene after the other, right next to each other. But like, perfect. I like that they were like, okay, we got to get our booze in here, and like check. It felt like very checklisty, but corny and fun for this kind of movie, right? Like I wouldn't expect it not to be in this movie. So go ahead, do it. It's okay.
Right. One thing that I did actually genuinely like about this movie is that I feel like not enough movies, and maybe just because it's still relatively new tech, but they worked in deep fakes in a way that made organic sense. I'm like, like we talk about deep faking in the creation of movies, like de-aging or up-aging or whatever actors, but like to actually use deep fake technology in the story, I was like, oh, that we should see more often. Like it's the Mission Impossible mask, 21st century or whatever.
I agree. Like one of the problems we had with some of these movies that we watch, some of the Fast and Furious movies, is like, what are they trying to get? And it's just like a thing, right? And like,
good
point. They're trying to like just find Cleopatra's eggs, but that's very clear. Exactly.
And we know there's 3 of them, and 1 is missing.
We know there's 3. There's 1 missing. We know that there's it's okay. We're getting these things, but the way that they get them and like trying to circumvent facial recognition, which is a real thing. Circumvent fingerprints,
Yep.
like
Yep.
all of these things. I was like, oh, this tracks very logically. Like it might be silly the way they do it, but at the same time, it's like we need to get past like his vault. You can only open it with his face and his voice. So like they use the deepfake thing, like a lot of times I'm like, cause they're just like, we're doing a thing to do a thing, and this is how we do it. We're gonna use magnets, and it's like, okay, I guess those two things work, but that's
Right.
not. But this is like very direct.
Yes, like the Fast and Furious is like, hey, we have these 4 or 5 action stunts we need to link together through
Yes.
some kind of nonsense story. And here it's like, okay, no, we have the story, and like, how can we kind of like, because I don't think there's a single action scene in this movie that I'll remember in like even 2 weeks. Like the best one is maybe when they steal like the old like Nazi
Yes,
Mercedes-Benz,
I'll remember
right?
that. I agree.
But that
yeah.
just feels like a knockoff Indiana Jones, which isn't like a bad thing. But it's just
Again,
like,
yep.
there's nothing here where it's like, oh my god, they jumped a car from one building to another building and into a third building. Like it's like there's not that, but it's like, oh yeah, they're just like they're beating each other up.
Yeah, and it doesn't really need that. It's just like, okay, like that's just how it worked. So
Yeah. They also do the Hobbs and Shaw electrocution.
Yes,
They're not
they
getting
do.
shocked together. This is a more traditional, like, I'm going to torture him, so you tell us the thing. But again, they're both tied up. Hobbs and a character or an actor who was in Hobbs and Shaw are tied up and electrocuted. Just like, oh, okay, yes.
Does Dwayne Johnson have like a shocking like shock me fetish or something that he has to do this in 2 movies in a row?
I mean,
essentially now.
Even in this one, that she electroshocks his balls, right? Even though we find out later she did that to sneak him the key to blah 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 blah.
Yes.
Even though we've seen like they're getting shocked. We later find out that Gal Gadot slipped Dwayne Johnson the key so that he could escape, but we've seen him in other movies just like break handcuffs with his strength. Like I thought that's what he did, and like didn't want to admit it or whatever. And like there was just like this whole like other. It's like, oh,
We're always like show don't explain, and sometimes like a movie, especially like these like big budget action movies, will be like, and this is how we did it, right? And you're like, okay, or like it'll have plot holes, like you said, like maybe he could just break out of handcuffs, so like he's the guy that just does that, and
Yeah.
we're like totally okay with it. I kind of enjoyed that they were like, hey, if you did see any plot holes, we have an answer for them, like
Yeah.
it was like, okay, that's pretty respectable. I like that. It was like, no, she actually handed him the key. That's how he got out of it. And you're like he could have just broke out of him, but like I respect that you put in the thought and effort to show us that like no, that there was a real reason that this happened.
there's a thing that movies do that not necessarily can make or break a movie, but can break a movie. Like when I saw the number 23, that Jim Carrey like psychological thriller from like the 2000s,
Yeah.
that movie I remember hating because it's like, okay, there's some weird thing going on, and then like with 20 minutes left, it's like spoilers for that movie. Don't watch it. It's like, oh, it was him the whole time, and like there's like a 10-minute like, oh, let's flash back to every scene in the movie and show you what it was like. It's just like, I don't need to see all of this. Like, just trust me a little bit. But here, it's done tastefully is probably the wrong word, but it's just like, here's the scenes, like, Dwayne Johnson pointing the gun at Ryan Reynolds, and he's like asking for his badge, and he's just like, well, I'm not really, whatever, I can't show you the badge. Or it's just like, oh,
Maybe
right,
I'm
like,
a bad
we did
guy.
see this. Yeah.
And they do it like in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, yep, that makes sense. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was good.
Like that feeling I kind of had, or like the thing I've seen in other movies, like, yeah, okay, they did it here. Cool.
Totally fine by me.
Yeah. Ryan Reynolds also mentions a Mr. Nobody.
He
who
does.
worked for Hitler.
I have that too. Yeah, it's Hitler's the guy that has the bunker.
Yep.
He calls him Hitler's Mr. There's so much like Fast and the Furious woven in this movie. Just I get that Mr. Nobody is not like a trademarked thing, right? Because
But I don't know that I've ever heard a Mr. Nobody as a name for a person. As just like some nobody or whatever, or like Hitler's art critic. But saying like Hitler's Mr. Nobody, his art, it's just like,
yeah, I
Say
agree.
what?
The forgotten Mr. Nobody, and you're like, yeah, it could definitely have just been, Kurt Russell for sure.
yeah. And there's also like when they get to this place where it's again like Raiders of the Lost Ark, where there's like the Ark of the Covenant, whatever, and there's all these different things. Ryan Reynolds is like, oh my God, there's this car that there's only one of 4 in the world. It's just like, oh, so it's the end of Fast 5. It's just there's only 4 in the Western Hemisphere or whatever. It's just like it's the same thing.
It's the exact same thing.
But what I loved about that, I never saw before. Have you seen cars like the crank to start on the front?
Yeah, that's like a really old.
That's how it used to work.
An old timey, thing.
Okay, because I'd never seen that before.
Yeah, it was cool. And it was cool that it was an old Mercedes. It's cool that it was Hitler's car. It was cool that they drove it, right? Because like once they put the car there, you're like, you're gonna fucking drive this thing, right?
Right.
Like you have to. So
Yeah,
yeah,
because especially they're like, it's bulletproof and it can go this fast. It's like, oh, okay, so they're gonna drive it very fast and like get shot at. Okay, got it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like that's what. There's a lot of alley oops in this movie. It's like
Yeah.
for very like it's very gentle on the viewer in the sense that they're like, we're gonna tell you exactly what's about to happen, and you're gonna watch it and you're gonna be like, yep, that's what
Yep.
happened, and it was still fun. So
And they're not like mammoth slam dunks. It's just like, yeah, but the ball went in the hoop, so okay,
yeah,
cool.
exactly. Like that's what I'm saying. I can't find anything bad to say about this movie because it's just like, yeah, this is exactly what I was expecting. Like you said, it's bulletproof. It goes really fast. The car is parked right here. There's a hole. They sealed up the shaft of the mine entrances, but they're really huge. Like,
Yep.
okay, I know where we're going with this.
Yep. They escape, and basically the thing was, there's these 3 eggs. They know where 2 are. They have to steal the 2, and then Ryan Reynolds knows what the 3rd is. They're going to steal this thing, whatever.
And when
There's
they
all
get
this
them, they can
betrayal
sell
and
them to
whatever.
the
Yes.
they can sell them to this Egyptian billionaire for his daughter Cleopatra, and they'll get $300 million.
Correct. And so they do that, but then Ryan Reynolds backstabs them, betrays them, and sets them up like, hey, I got this even bigger heist, but you have to help me now, otherwise they're going to get turned over, and so that's how the movie ends, right? But it builds up to... It doesn't build up to, but in my mind builds up to this thing, and I'm like, whoa, okay, do you know what I'm talking about? Where the one thing I'm like, I can't believe they said that in this movie?
Is it a joke, like a throwaway
Yeah.
joke? Okay, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Go ahead.
So this kind of it connects 2 things. So one thread we have not talked about is that this is, but we talked about in other things, is this is a movie where characters reference other movies, which we were talking
Yes,
about. Like,
yeah.
it's surprising that it doesn't happen more often, but it happens again in Ryan Reynolds things, like in Deadpool, in Hobbs and Shaw, talking about Game of Thrones,
Yep,
whatever,
yep.
right? But they talk about Jurassic Park for like
Yes.
a while.
Yeah.
They talk about Pulp. He like references like, no, this is the Watchmen Pulp Fiction. Like,
Yep.
just like, okay. And then
Go
in
ahead.
both a third of that and also a Fastnection, they take a shot about like it's worse than Vin Diesel's audition tape for Cats. And I
Is
was
that
like,
a real thing?
I don't know, but in a Dwayne Johnson movie to take a shot at Vin Diesel, even like a lighthearted
Yes.
jab about like where the joke is also about the movie being bad, Cats being bad. Like, I'm like, oh no, like what? Maybe this is real. Maybe he does hate Vin Diesel. Because, you know, the big real life drama that we're trying to figure out if it's real life
Yes.
drama or just manufactured wrestling promotion is whether or not Vin and Dwayne hate each other. And so for in a Dwayne Johnson movie that is a high budget, like if all things go well, this movie makes $1 billion or is seen, it's the Netflix's most successful thing, whatever, to basically end like the final joke of your movie
Yes.
is taking a shot at Vin Diesel. It's like, whoa.
It feels
Okay.
It definitely feels weird, especially coming off the news that we had this week of
Yes.
Vin posting the Instagram thing, being like, "We need to get over this," and like, you know, I'll be the bigger man here, and stuff like that, because it was a thought choice.
Yeah.
This wasn't
Yeah.
just because we definitely get some. You're right. We get some other movie references and stuff like that, but like to specifically call out Vin Diesel's audition tape for something.
Because, like, you can make fun of Tyrese, you can make fun of Ludacris,
Oh,
you
yeah.
can make fun of anybody in the Fast and Furious, but taking a shot at the king, at the father figure,
Yes.
right, is like, you know what you're doing.
In a movie that's essentially a Fast and the Furious movie.
Yes.
Like, very,
Correct.
very same tone, play,
Correct.
everything is very interesting.
Crazy.
It felt weird, man. I was like, oh, fuck. Like,
Ooh.
this made me feel like it might be a little bit more real than we were leading on to believe.
Yes.
In a very, very quick one-line jab, just,
But
you
there's
know?
no way that he doesn't know about this already, that Vin doesn't know that this
Oh,
this
yeah.
line was said in a Dwayne Johnson movie.
Oh, for sure.
And maybe he loves it. Maybe he's good-spirited about it. But it seems like, based on the way that they've... Everything since Vin's supposed walk-off of the set of Fate of the Furious, seems like he's not going to take this in stride.
No. Again, but the timing is so weird when he just
Yes.
posted the Instagram thing, too.
Yes.
I'm like, it almost feels like he knew it was in the movie, and, like...
Maybe it's almost like, hey, I know you're going around talking shit. If you man up, though, I'd love
Yeah.
to have you back. Just grow up and stop doing what you're doing.
Yeah, like, he had to have found out about this beforehand, because the timing is just too weird.
Or it's underhandedly he's about to get a lot of attention in the press because he's got a new movie coming out. Here's a little steal a little bit of the spotlight by like taking him down a peg, and sort of because Vin Diesel's done a ton of things, but he doesn't have like a project coming out this weekend or whatever, right? So like,
no, F10 is the next thing,
right? Any other notes that you have? Any other thoughts about Red Notice before we play a couple games?
It starts out in what looks like Jonah's garage from Hobbs and Shaw, by the way, like when they're like making a fake egg.
Oh yeah. The 3D printing the egg, yes.
Yeah, the 3D printing the egg, just like everything about it just felt like very Jonah's garage. And the other last thing was, he was like, when they have the like, my dad stole the watch, but then later The Rock comes by and it's like, my dad was a con man and like, left me when I was 13 and all this stuff. That's like literally the same story that he tells in Hobbs and Shaw about his dad.
Your dad was a cop, so you became a crook. My dad was a crook, so I became a cop, or not so different. It's like, that's just Hobbs, right? So.
Because like yes. Because, like, when he goes to Jonah, he's like, I was never here because, like, my dad was a crook and, like, I became a cop. And you're like, yeah, that's the exact same story.
Yep. There is one other line that I like. So when there's, like, the elaborate, we talked about before, with the deep fakes and the voice changing and the thumbprint and whatever, where Dwayne Johnson and Ryan Reynolds are trying to break into this, like, highly secured vault that Sotto Voce has. That's the Chris Diamantopoulos role. And they go in there, and just when they get in there, Gal Gadot's already in there. She's like, hey, guys. And she's like, there's another way you could have gotten here, but like, I don't think you have it in you or whatever. I'm like, oh, she's like, flirting or sex stuff or whatever. And then we find out later that she had just like secretly partnered with Sotto Voce and like she knew that they were going to steal it or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then when we find out that she's actually betraying him too, Ryan Reynolds says, and this one, maybe my favorite line in the movie, he's saying to Chris Diamantopoulos, to Sotto Voce, she's a hard 10, talking about Gal's beauty. And you look like a muscular toddler. And I'm like, pretty good.
I mean, I don't know who writes for Ryan Reynolds or if he writes his comedy stuff, but like all of these, like, you look like a muscular toddler, and like it's the watch from Pulp Fiction. Like, they're always just like really funny. Like, they hit really well for me. Yeah, they always work. Like, it's silly. It seems realistic. It's something like I could feel like my friends would say. So yeah, it feels natural.
This movie also gave me like my new ultimate dream, which is just to watch TV with Gal Gadot in sweatpants on a couch in a beautifully furnished apartment. Even though like
Italian TV.
Yeah. Even though like
croissants.
The books. Yes. I had that eating breakfast. Yes. But like even though like the books are just like great rock covers, it's like that's the name of the book that you have next to your TV. Cool. Like, thank you for being so specific in your set decoration, but still in a beautifully furnished Italian apartment eating breakfast with Gal Gadot in sweatpants, like that seems like
that's top tier.
Number one. I agree. All right, let's watch the trailer for Red Notice, posted by Netflix a couple weeks ago, has 3 million views. Red Notice official trailer, Netflix.
And tell me when you're ready.
3, 2, 1, play. The movie also obviously looks beautiful, but there are like a lot of... Did you notice any scenes where just like that feels green screened in a way that I don't know why it would be green screened?
Yep. I think so.
Okay, so that was a scene where there's the aviation gin, but you're saying before this had the Terramana tequila. So there's the aviation gin in the background.
No, after that.
Oh, after that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, when like the Italian police officer woman comes to arrest him in the airport.
Oh,
and drops the egg.
Yeah. This also feels like the easiest movie in the world.
Hello, boys.
Look at her, having so much fun. Looks like the easiest movie in the world to sell. Just like, hey, you like these 3 people?
Yep.
Here's some fun music. Here's some beautiful locations.
Yep.
Oh, here.
That. Yes, yeah. In that.
Okay.
Bye-bye, Agent John Hartley.
Red Notice.
She's gonna steal Cleopatra's.
You know, the movie does one thing that I really appreciate that I think we've talked about in different ways, but when they're at the masquerade party, which is where they're stealing the second egg.
Yeah.
Dwayne Johnson has a masquerade mask on, right?
Yes.
And he takes it off, and Gal Gadot's like, oh, thank God you took it off. Like, I didn't know who you were under it. It's like, yeah, nobody looks like him.
Yes.
So, like, I like that they, like, took the piss out of that. Just like, yeah, of course. Like, it just, he's 6'5" and, like, 280 pure muscle. It's like, yeah, you don't, like, you're not hiding. So, whatever. I just thought that was very funny.
I agree. I liked it a lot. Yeah, that and him being like, Gal, you look awful. You know, like
this I laughed very hard at. I'm glad I didn't see the trailer because I was just like,
the elbow bump?
It's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you look awful. Like you're saying, it was great.
This is a fun trailer. I mean, it ruins everything, but this
Yeah.
is a movie that you couldn't really ruin anyways.
5-second rule.
This is a marriage of convenience.
I want a divorce. I'm keeping the kids.
Are you kidding me?
What? This is hard.
So much guns. Oh, when he's making fun of him with the jacket, and he's like, "There's a very naked cow right now." That's
Saying
happening.
worth it.
Yeah.
Are you not entertained?
See?
Yeah.
There's one last thing you should know.
Yeah, you see this trailer, you're like, I have to see this movie.
Yeah, you're like, yep, I definitely imagined all of this would happen, and I'm still happy about it.
Oh, what the
Oh yeah, Ryan Reynolds almost gets the fuck, and then actually gets the fuck.
Yes, he almost gets the fuck a few times, and then like near the end they like let him have the one.
It's unfair that movie seems to be the object of scorn for so many people. But like, if this is what is going to inspire better movie making, cool. But like, don't take that out of Red Notice. Watch Red Notice.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. Red Notice didn't deserve this for sure. It's just a happy, fun movie. Like, of all the things, like we have lots of problems with a lot of things.
Yeah,
We definitely do. But like, Red Notice is what they took it out on. Like, come on,
Yeah.
guys.
and that's the thing. Like, I know that I'm overly critical of things, or like too critical. Like, I don't turn my brain off and just enjoy things. But like, there's something like this from just like why this? Like, why this one? Like, explain to me, like, why specifically this is like the worst movie of the year. And I don't think you can. It's just like, I've seen this before. It's like, yeah, cool. I've seen actively bad movies this year. Like, get over
Yeah.
it.
That's the part that I have the most problem with. It's like, did you look at the lineup in this trailer and go like, "Oh, I'm ready for something new and exciting." You know, like if you came into this thinking that you were going to get something new and different and like fantastic, that's your own fault.
Even down to the fact that like they used that Tupac remix in the trailer, which was used, I think, that exact version in like one of the big scenes in Django Unchained, where like Jamie Foxx is shooting up the house. It's like nothing here. Like, you've seen this before recently too. Who gives a shit? Just come watch beautiful people have fun. It's like, yeah, fine, cool.
It's like going to like get some fast food and being like, that really sucked, and you're like, yeah, it
You
happened.
paid $3 for a cheeseburger. What did you expect?
Exactly. Yeah, man.
Oh,
It's
I'm
after-
so sorry that we gave you a $200 million budget movie on your TV at home that you didn't have to leave for and you could turn off at any point. Like, so sorry that it bothered you so much.
Exactly.
We'll never deliver fun again.
Yeah.
All right. So now here is the wildest thing, because this is updating in real time the Letterboxd game.
Oh.
So for reference sake, Mad Max Fury Road has been seen by 928,000 people. Yeah. So I refreshed and it went up 1,000 people since we started this episode.
Jesus.
And it went up 1,000 people since when I was watching the movie last night. So Red Notice, directed by Ross and Marshall Thurber, starring Dwayne Johnson, Ryan Reynolds, Gal Gadot, has been seen by how many people?
It's brand new. It's on Netflix. It's easy to access. I gotta go 38,000.
Too high.
Okay.
It's
okay.
very new.
I know, but it was like Friday night, so I guess people were watching it this morning already. 17,000.
Still too high, but you're much closer. One more guess.
15,000.
12,502. It was like last night when I watched it, it was like 6,200, and then by the time I finished, it was like at 7,000. So it's, people are waking up and watching it or whatever. So
Yeah, I must have done Friday night things. I expected it's to creep up this morning, and like last night would have been a lot of them.
So now, out of those 12,502, how many have it in their top 4? Almost exclusively, people were like, "These are my 4 recent favorite movies." How many people have this in their top 4?
Oh, so it's greater than 0.
Yeah, it's a number. We can play the game.
3?
It was 3 last night. It's a number higher than 3 now.
4.
A little bit higher. A little bit higher.
5.
7 people. 7 people have this in their top 4, including at least 2 bot accounts. There's Slot Online and Slot Online Indonesia, which both have just 4 brand new movies in their top 4, which we're just not going to do that. We're going to go to Ines, and we're going to see what you can play. She said, "God, I love this." 5 stars.
Okay.
It's tough, but like, I don't want to just play like the 4 biggest movies recently. Actually, let's see. Hold on. Let me see if there's a better person we can do. All right, we'll play this one. This is Ash Loves Films at Ash Loves Films. The last film is where I put my most recent favorite because it rotates so often. So Red Notice is in our number 4 slot, but our top 3 are all horror movies.
Okay,
the first 2 are in the same, I don't know if I'd call it a franchise, but I'd call it a series. And then the third one is the first in an ongoing franchise with a new one coming out early next year, which is a huge hint. 3 horror movies.
Not Halloween, because Halloween just had one come out.
Correct.
Scream.
But Halloween,
Scream.
Yes. Scream number
Has
3,
a new
her
one
third
coming
favorite
out
movie.
soon.
Yes, also called Scream.
Yes. That's
Confusingly.
true. It's rebooting. It's
Yes.
New engine,
No, I don't.
same
It's not
parts.
rebooting. It's the same actors. It's soft rebooting, if anything. But it's still
That's what I mean. New engine,
Prescott.
same parts. It's Fast and Furious for sure.
So the first 2, you could probably guess, it's a series of 2 movies, and she has both of them in her top 2. I don't like these movies, but a lot of people do. I would guess that you and or Rachel, if you've seen them, would have really liked them, I think.
It
and It Chapter 2.
Yep, that's what I thought. I did like It. We did see them. We did like them. Yes, that makes sense.
So It Chapter 2, Scream, and Red Notice. So thank you, Ash Loves Films. It's hard, the other one, like the slot online Indonesia was like Shang-Chi and No Time to Die and Venom, Let There Be Carnage in this movie. Just like, 4 huge movies from the last month. Got it. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, robot.
Yes.
But that was Red Notice.
That was good. I did good on the fucking letterbox game again.
You sure did. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm on a hot streak, so I'll go cold real soon.
So this episode, will be out today as we record this, Saturday the 13th. So Tuesday for everyone will be the Tune Up Relab Recap. Monday for patrons at toofast2forever.com will be that same episode a little bit early. They just got a bonus episode 2 days ago of Hot Rod, Andy Samberg's Hot Rod.
Ooh.
And next week, the 23rd, the Fast and Furious Lap 10, kicking off Lap 10,
So excited.
which I'm not going to say the theme of because you need to listen to the tune-up. I almost spoiled it. But you got to listen to that other episode.
Yeah.
Or just join the Patreon at toofast2forever.com.
Exactly.
For all things.
Taylor's version of the...
Taylor's version. Yes, that was a good tweet. I like that.
I thought you did.
For all things, Too Fast, Too Forever, cageclub.me, facebook.com/toofast2forever, or at toofast2forever on Twitter and Instagram. Email us, family@cageclub.me, Patreon at toofast2forever.com, store, toofast2forever.shop. Come back in a couple days for the Tune-Up Relap Recap. Email in if you saw a Red Notice and you want to know. I want to hear if you like this movie, if you thought this was like the end of cinema as we know it. Family@cageclub.me. Just let us know.
Yeah.
And, just keep on keeping on. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe, too.
And we'll tell you all about it
When we see you